And Bobby love, love, Bobby love.
Welcome back to this already the final segment of today's Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Talking to Sigmund Kramer. He is hanging out here as usual. Thank God, or we wouldn't produce a show. And interesting little video I stumbled across over at time.com, and I wanted to share it with the listener out there. And it's a good, I guess you could say, a good preface to a conversation on why the Russian economy is struggling so much. 5 reasons why that I think are pretty interesting springboards for conversation by Time. But here's that video.
The kids growing up in Chechnya these days are a lot luckier than their parents and grandparents. At least the youngest ones have only known their homeland in southern Russia to be a peaceful and even quite beautiful place, full of enormous mosques and skyscrapers and shopping districts and fast food joints. From their elders, they would have heard stories about the wars of the 1990s, when Russia fought to keep the separatists of Chechnya from breaking the region away. But few of the children today have any memories of the Russian bombardment, the months of indiscriminate shelling, and the thousands of people it killed. Today, Chechnya is a very different place. It is thriving, but it is also in some ways a very strange place to grow up. Around the schools and apartment blocks, along the roads and highways, there are portraits of President Vladimir Putin, the same man who sent the Russian Air Force to retake control of Chechnya in 1999. His face is usually displayed as part of a trinity, alongside the men Putin installed to rule Chechnya after the war. The region's current leader, 38-year-old Ramzan Kadyrov, has embraced this cult of personality and pushed the worship of Putin to a level not seen anywhere else in Russia. High school students in Chechnya are now encouraged to join pro-Putin youth groups, whose members carry flags decorated with the president's face. The younger kids often put on pageants for Kadyrov, as they did during a recent festival to mark the beginning of spring. Preparations for it began early in the morning. Mounds of food were prepared. A wooden throne was installed for Kadyrov at a banquet table. And at the entrance, a group of children helped set a carpet for Kadyrov and then waited for his arrival. It took far longer than most of them expected. And when he finally drove up in his SUV, he exchanged a few words with his advisors, took a brief walk around the festival, and then went on his way. For the kids, it didn't seem like such an odd way to spend a Saturday. The youngest ones have never known another Chechnya, while the adults would far prefer today's reality to their memories of the wars.
That's interesting, kind of telling and certainly sad. The thing about it that struck me as interesting is that in the 1990s, you have wars. The communists, under the communists, it was very common to have wars of aggression as a way to distract people from how bad things were domestically.
Sure.
It becomes an excuse. And it's not just the Russians. Totalitarian governments have done that throughout time.
As has America. Wag the dog,
truth.
Bill Clinton in the 90s with the entire world looking at his own personal libido.
Right. We need a conflict somewhere. Where did he do it? Was it in Africa, or what was that deal that he did?
Was it the aspirin factory? I don't remember what it was. But
but it was something like that. We need, we need to commit crimes against humanity in order to get people off of my libido here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was lobbing missiles. It was total wag the dog. And the movie had just come out too. It was very interesting.
Interesting timing. Yeah. Dustin Hoffman and who else was in that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember now.
It wasn't a very good movie actually, but the theme was interesting because of what was happening dynamic wise. Anyways, as usual, you and I digress. But it's an interesting story. And I keep wondering because the situation is getting extremely bad there in Russia when they start looking at the possibility of another conflict, another war in order to improve things.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're still going on with Ukraine. So That's always on the burner.
Yep. 5 reasons why, according to Time magazine, the lack of diversification, I think, is obvious. They put way too much of their resources in energy, which is too dependent on
Oil
what's
and
happening.
natural gas.
Which is too dependent on too many factors beyond their control. They're at the mercy of oil markets is kind of the corollary to number 1. And again, this is from Time.com, and everything's just completely volatile. The insanity that's going on around energy is just really...
Well, the prices have dropped precipitously, which means that Russia has less money to spend.
Yeah. And in that same vein, they're at the mercy of sanctions.
Right.
Moscow's over-reliance on crude oil, which makes up 40% of the Russian state budget, has also left the country particularly vulnerable to international sanctions.
Which they got because why? They went into Ukraine.
Yeah. Because he's a bad boy.
Right.
Yeah.
So why would he do that?
That was Lou Costello.
Yeah.
I'm a bad... Yeah.
So why would he do that? It's amazing.
That just shows you how much ego he has, and I think that also shows you how much he under respects our administration, our president.
Oh, no doubt about that.
I don't think he even thought he'd get even any sanctions in that whole deal. Russia's other problems. Russians aren't nearly as productive as they could be. For each hour worked, the average Russian worker contributes $25.90 to the Russian GDP. The average Greek worker adds $36 an hour to this GDP.
And Greek, and you
Greece's
see the problems
like a joke.
have.
It's like the butt of jokes. And Greece is not a country you want to trail in productivity. The average U.S. worker is at $67.40.
Yeah.
And so that, in addition, endemic corruption. Corruption in Russia. What a shock. Of course, we have our own corruption here.
No doubt.
But this year, Freedom House... Freedom House gave the country a 6.75 on its corruption scale, 7 being most corrupt.
Wow.
So
even more so than Louisiana.
Even more so. Yeah, Bobby Jindal, I hope you're listening. All right, let's talk about the last one, no incentive to change, which is typically the case when you live under a totalitarian regime.
Well, listen to that video that we just had. They actually feel like they're better off.
Under
Putin, now than a few years ago in the 90s during the whole Chechen when they were trying to actually secede. And I don't know, it's just fascinating. The Russians have been so put upon as a people for so many generations. And I think that their will's broken.
It is broken.
Their will is just broken. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah, when I traveled, right after the fall of communism, I traveled in Poland, Hungary, Belarus, and Russia. And of the 4, the least hopeful I left feeling was about Russia.
Yeah.
The least hopeful. Belarus, I felt comparably less hopeful. I was feeling okay about Hungary, and of the 4, I thought I had the most optimism for Poland. Very robust people, very innovative people, clearly people that felt like they were an oppressed people, and now they know they didn't have to be an oppressed people going forward.
Right.
And sure enough, they've got the most interesting economy, not only in Eastern Europe, but really in Europe.
Yeah.
And they really have an economic miracle in the works. And I hope it doesn't become overly sexy to the Russians, because Poland's really close to Russia.
Well, Germany's doing well. I mean, they're the powerhouse of the European economy right now.
Right.
But Poland is absolutely like the up-and-coming star.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not making a comparison. The engineering advantages and technology advantages that Germany has are just off the chart.
But you're right.
But it's amazing to see what Poland has done.
Poland has a lot of people who are very, shall we say, motivated, which Russia does not.
No, it doesn't. It'd be interesting to see how much they produce per GDP per hour.
Yeah.
Interesting to see that. I'm going to have to look at and see what the reference is.
Well, so here's my thought, real quick, last take.
The last take would be my producers, not the host. Anyway, go ahead.
Russia's you can, but I mean, you can
I'm
answer
joking.
this. But Russia's economy is not doing well. Okay, there is a point to this. They usually would rely on China. China's economy is not doing well. So
in fact, China is undermining Russia's economy with the currency wars.
Absolutely. So what is Russia to do? Well, luckily for them, a nice man named Barack Obama and another nice man named John Kerry have pushed to end sanctions in Iran. Well, what will that do? That'll free up billions, hundreds of billions of dollars for the Iranians to be able to purchase weapons and other materials from whom? Russia.
Because their weapons are cheaper than the United States weapons. They
Well-
can buy a larger quality, and they got a history of familiarity with those for the last few decades. Before the Shah, they only knew U.S. weapons. The Shah, that's all he purchased. But now, after decades of all the nefarious purchasing of these armaments, that's all they really know.
So Russian weapons, you'll find, are going to end up all over the Middle East because they need the cash.
One more reason why we need Donald Trump, because Donald Trump, in this deal will say, listen, if they're going to hang us, they're going to hang us with a rope we sell them. So we need to have a deal here where this part of this deal is they can only buy our armaments to kill us.
Well, there you go. Donald Trump.
There you
have it.
go. Yeah. Little cynicism there. I hope you thought that was humor, because that was the intent. Not a suggestion by any means. All right. When we come back tomorrow, we're going to have much more for you. Do you want to remind you the show continues 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com. And the best content here shows up over there at usdailyreview.com. Have a great day. Spend it wisely on this station.